Hello everyone, and once again, welcome to Movie Masochism. That's right, the show where I subject myself to a whole bunch of terrible movies that I've never seen before. Again, as I've stated in the last episode, if for the 9 viewers out there that actually watched it at the time of this recording, I've seen quite a bit of bad movies in my lifetime. I was either one of the people that would go to see them with high expectations and got, disappointed in the big budget stuff, or I would hear about the completely awful reviews. And back when video stores were a thing and I worked at a video store and I had an afternoon or an evening to kill, me or my girlfriend at the time would just throw out a bunch of bad movies and just enjoy laughing at them or just watching them fall completely flat on their face. But yeah, so watching bad movies is kind of fun for me. So I say it's movie masochism, but a lot of the times it's just me enjoying a bad film, ironically, which, as if anybody that watches this show, they probably like to do themselves. So, that being said, this is the first episode, technically second, but first episode that I've doing this in response to a poll for everybody that we put out there. It said, hey, I had about 5 different choices of movies to pick, and the one that won out this week is Disorderlies, the 1987 Fat Boys comedy. And I gotta admit, I'd heard about this movie. It's one of those ones that didn't leave a humongous impact. I think it's one of those it made only $10 million when it came out in 1987, which was respectable probably, but I don't think it was the hit they were expecting, so it's definitely not one that's really remembered. The most I know about the Fat Boys, I don't have much of a music background outside of I was in band in school, but I didn't listen to a lot of pop music during the 80s until about maybe 10 or 15 years ago when VH1 started doing the I Love the 80s thing, and I got on a huge 80s kick back then. But I didn't hear a lot of Fat Boys music, and I think the most I know about them are 2 things. I know that they were the guest spots in the beginning of the Weird Al Yankovic Fat video, and this is kind of a funny cameo. Weird Al's funny. I love Weird Al's sense of humor, so I thought they fit right in there. So, might as well, I could see that being a fun transition to a film. And I also know them as the guys that wrote Are You Ready for Freddy from Nightmare on Elm Street 4. So, yeah, they did a theme song for Freddy Krueger where Freddy Krueger starts to rap. Yeah, it was the beginning of the Freddy as a jokester transition period for him. So that's about all I know going in. For the longest time, I thought that it was nominated for a Razzie for Worst New Star, because they always like doing that, and I went to look up the history of the Razzies, and I didn't see a nomination for it, so I guess I'm kind of in a state right now where some people have said, hey, it's not that bad, or other people are just never even heard of it, but it won the poll. So from 5 votes, I am going to be watching Disorderlies. Maybe next season I will take a look at the second place runner-up with 4 votes for The Legend of Hercules. I think I might have had a bit more bile spewing for that one, but so here we go. I had to find it. I'm renting it from YouTube right now. Paid the YouTube rental fee, so yep, here I am. Here I go. I'm gonna plug it in, and let's see if I am entertained by Disorderlies. What the hell kind of ending was that? Okay, so I just got through watching Disorderlies. It's pretty much bland and forgettable. for the first hour and 20 some odd minutes, I mean, in a nutshell, this nephew is in debt to like a mafia boss for about $600,000 or $400,000 or something like that, but he assures the crime boss that he will get him the money once his rich uncle passes away. The rich uncle is played by Ralph Bellamy, who, as many of you guys might know, is one half of Duke and Duke Enterprises from Trading Places, and I think this would be a more tragic ending than what we saw the Duke brothers end up in their little cameo in Coming to America. So in order to make the uncle pass away, the nephew decides to just help the process and decides that the orderlies taking care of his uncle are too on the money, and decides to he finds the worst rest home in the United States, in like Brooklyn or Queens, or it's a very run down rest home. And honestly, I don't think the Fat Boys are to blame for this, because like the one scene that we get in there, their supervisor is having a coronary over 17 chocolate cakes that have been eaten by them. And honestly, it makes me just think, one, why is there that much chocolate cake in there for a retirement home? Who the hell is their nutritionist? And two, if he gets that upset over cakes, I mean, the guy, if you watch him, I mean, that's his only scene in the movie, and he about has a coronary, just saying, "Where are the cakes?" So, of course, the nephew, who, he looks like if Jeffrey Jones and Rick Mayall had a kid. Yeah, he shows up and decides, oh yeah, those are the orderlies that are going to replace these other on-the-ball orderlies down in West Palm Beach, Florida. And immediately, as soon as they go down there, they think it's I guess they think it's an opportunity for them. That's one of the biggest things about this movie, is you never really... the Fat Boys never really get to develop any character at all. Like, you see them do pratfall after pratfall, but they're not even well set up pratfalls. I mean, and this is where we get into kind of a rough description here, because describing a bad movie is one thing, but describing a bad comedy is something completely different. And you know, what's funny to one person may not be funny to another, but I think the best way to describe this is you give these characters pretty wacky situations. I'll talk about some of the situations they get into later, but they don't give them anything to work with. They don't give them anything to let, you know, an individuality in them come through, or any kind of personality. And again, like I stated before, I didn't listen to the Fat Boys growing up, so I don't know if they have like any, you know, distinct personality that comes through in their music or their interviews or anything like that. And if this movie was meant to be a vehicle for them, it's not. I mean, this is a pretty bad, like, starring vehicle for any musician trying to transition into the film world. So anyway, so they go down to West Palm Beach, Florida, which my wife's from Florida. She's from the Miami area, and I actually sent her a message midway through this movie. I was like, is West Palm Beach really this uptight? Like, because the second they land in West Palm Beach, like, they start driving down the street, they see the police arresting a guy in boxers, and their thought was, man, this place is really uptight. And I don't know, if I see a guy in broad daylight walking around in his boxers, I kind of want him arrested too. Or at least just taken out of the public eye, because if that's all he's wearing, you don't want anything else out there. But, so, once they've decided, man, this is an uptight area, what they do, immediately, the guy that's, like, closest to the window rolls the window down, sees these women in bikinis walking alongside the beach, and he starts catcalling them. And in, like, a really, I mean, one of the actual funny moments of the movie, they jump cut to him getting locked up in jail, which I got a chuckle out of that, because I like the sudden ending of just, like, how that immediately put him in jail, which, honestly, yeah, more power to him. I thought that was an appropriate response, and wish that could have been more of a response. I guess that's why I got a laugh out of it. So I messaged my wife, and I asked her about West Palm Beach. I was like, is that normally, like, an uptight area? And she sends me back a question like, what are you talking about? I tell her I'm watching the movie, and she says, it's like, the only thing I know about that area is it's pretty big into porn. So, which is funny, because you see, like, in the opening, you see, like, these massive, like, sweeping shot of all these, like, amazingly wealthy houses, and it just made me think, man, the West Palm Beach porn industry is really thriving. So, yeah, they touch down, they're introduced to everything there. They're introduced to Mr. Randolph Duke himself, who wakes up and is immediately just like, no, I'm in a nightmare, and the dark side of me just thought it'd be hilarious, like, because you got a close-up on Mr. Duke, who just finally opens his eyes, and you got a close-up of all three of the fat boys, and then he just starts doing and I just thought it'd be a funny cut right to the credits of him dying there. But no, hang on. Pause. So yeah, by that point, by that point, he's introduced, and we're half an hour into this movie by this point. And it's an hour and a half movie, and I couldn't tell you one single individual trait of the characters that the fat boys play, and all I knew is, oh, they're fat. So I knew I was strapping myself in for an hour and a half of basically fat jokes and evil, rich, white 80s stereotypes, which, oh my god, these... like, every person that you're introduced to, like, it's like the reject list from Caddyshack, or better yet, it's the cast of Caddyshack 2 of the upper crust people. Yeah, I mean, like, everything that you remember from the 80s about, like, whenever you watched a movie, who was the bad guy? It was the country club person with the blonde hair and the fancy suits and the I'm always talking like this kind of attitude. And yeah, that's kind of that's the extent of the characters. I mean, outside of the nephew, who I kept thinking, oh my god, is this Jeffrey Jones? And then thinking, no, it's not a younger, thinner Jeffrey Jones, because Beetlejuice came out the next year and Amadeus came out 4 years before that. So it's clearly not Jeffrey Jones. But yeah, so he thinks that these orderlies are gonna screw up immediately and the uncle's gonna die, and I'm laughing, oh god, why am I laughing? I'm laughing more at the fact that the formula for this movie just seems to be give them crazy, extraordinary circumstances that, in the hands of a good comedic writer, would probably get a laugh or two out of this. I mean, it would probably be, if the writers were a little bit more skilled, it would probably be maybe a 2-star, 2.5-star, hey, maybe it was good for a couple laughs, guilty pleasure comedy from the 80s, but no, they just give them the circumstances and think it's funny because, yeah, that the first night they're there, they decide they want to go out, they want to cruise, so they get in the car, but they realize they can't leave him alone, so they throw practically a comatose Ralph Bellamy into the car, pick up 3 chicks, and they go to a roller skating rink where he just wakes up in the roller skating rink. He doesn't wake up from the transportation or the drive down or the women that are crawling along him on the side or whatever. It's the second he gets inside the roller skating rink, and yeah, he wakes up, he starts doing the, hey, I'm cranky, I'm an old cranky guy. But then the second one of the girls, I mean, they put him in a wheelchair on the roller skating rink, which, again, could have been a funny setup, but instead, it appears that he gets a boner midway through. Like, you see his eyes just go like that, and you hear, like, the poing, or, oh, the sound effects. I'll get to the sound effects later. But you hear a sound, and you can tell he's definitely got an erection from this girl sitting on his lap, which, gross. And all of a sudden, yeah, so he starts being happy. I'm happy now. This is so much fun. And there's the moment where he starts being, he's endeared to the fat boys, and they sneak in, and he covers for them. And, he, what was it? I actually wrote it down. There's some stuff I had to write down just because I knew once I did this I would forget the movie immediately, and I guarantee you after I'm done recording this, I'm going to forget this movie. And he says, "Step off, homeboy," and the first thing that went through my mind was, I wonder if this was the inspiration for Baps, that Halle Berry, Martin Landau movie that is like universally reviled from the mid-90s. Anyway, so yeah, the boys do another crazy happenstance the next night. They forget his pills, which he has this machine that has his pills set up like a gigantic roulette wheel with a dome over it. It looks like a James Bond villain device. You push a button, like the lights start lighting up. I mean, it looks like an 80s prop, obviously. Because there's no way a pill dispenser like this can exist in real life. I mean, it looked like it was designed for pressure luck. And, yeah, so they start, like, playing poker with all of his pills, and then, because they don't want to get caught, someone comes in the room, oh, I gotta hide the pills, so they get the tablecloth, and they think that, then somebody thinks it's garbage, and then the pills get thrown away, and then they say, well, maybe he, do you remember that one time that your grandfather got really sick and he had these pills and these pills and these pills and suddenly he stopped taking his pills and he got better? Maybe this is the circumstance. So they let him go to sleep without any medication whatsoever. Without even looking into what the medication is, first of all. So they basically wait till the morning to see if he's still alive. And in a shocking state, which I guess I could have done like another cutaway, was wakes up in the morning, they do his, like, the blood pressure. Oh, I'm not getting a blood pressure. Cut to the credits of the guy dying. Because there were so many times Ralph Bellamy, by this point, should have been dead. And we're at the halfway point of the movie. But through some miraculous circumstance and literally lucky for them, but still gigantic liability lawsuit here, not having the pills, the doctor comes in, looks at him, the guy, Ralph Bellamy, gets up, he's moving around, he actually shoves one of the fat boys down, he's in like full health mode, he's working out like, like Kirk Douglas in Seinfeld, is it Kirk Douglas, the guy that like worked out all the time, but he ended up like injuring himself. Imagine him working out like that, but not injuring himself, because then he starts immediately working out like crazy afterwards. I'm just like, I envy the energy this guy has right now to work out at this pace, because he's like playing polo, he's lifting weights, he's jogging. I mean, he's very much the active senior citizen who, strangely, within a couple days of not having medication, and the doctor said, oh yes, he was over-medicated. Great, doc, you didn't know that before? And I'm nitpicking, of course, because, you know, to nitpick something like this movie, it's really easy, but you can tell that not a single thought went into any of this. They're just hoping for the whole, just lighten up and have a good time kind of mentality. But sometimes it's maybe if this movie was set up that absurd, I would be fine with it. Like, if they would point out the absurdity of it, I'd be okay. But it doesn't do that. It doesn't make that extra step of pointing out how absurd it is. So, the guy's better. The nephew is like, that's it, I can't take it. We're pushing it up, and we're gonna make sure he dies tonight, and we're gonna frame the orderlies. They're gonna think the orderlies did it. So he gets the crime boss from the beginning to basically bring hitmen in and shoot his uncle. And honestly, and then honestly, this set of circumstances is just, it's literally so much plot convenience, because that night, oh my god, this next scene. So the fat boys get into this room, discover a camera, and discover a reel-to-reel recording device in a wall, and they thought, yo, let's make a music video. And they immediately start making a music video. And it's about how much wealth they've got, and I mean, basically like, you know, a late 90s rap song about, you know, having all the wealth and everything. But I thought it was going to go the direction that, you know, the Ralph Bellamy was going to, like, have an attempt on his life, and they were going to see the video and think, oh, that was their motivation all along, which, you know, would have been a funny set of circumstances. But the circumstances they choose to go, which in the middle of making this music video, they're like running all around the room, and it's all three of them in front of the camera. So it leaves me to ask, who's operating the camera if all three of them are going over there and just got it on the tripod? So like, if I were to like just go up over here and start talking, the camera was following them, but obviously there's no one on this camera, so you can't follow me. Again, thinking too much, but it's just such a stupid situation. But at the end of the video, they kick a computer, and apparently that blacks out the whole house. I don't know if the computer was in charge of, like, the power grid of the house, but that knocks out all the power. And apparently, you know, the fat boys, you know, they run away or whatever. Oh, I don't want to get caught. But they leave their camera on, you know, the old VHS camcorder, which the AV geek in me was thinking, oh, well, hopefully they didn't set it in SP, because it would have been recording 2 hours of nothing. But they happened to perfectly record the nephew on the phone with the crime boss talking about killing Ralph Bellamy. So that night, as the hitmen show up, the other two are literally become peeping Toms. At what point did that ever pass? I mean, did that pass for acceptable in the 80s? Because clearly they don't, because when the women see them, or, you know, after they fall off the wall because, oh, fat guy fall down funny, which apparently that was a thing back in the 80s too, and it's still a thing now. Thank you, Kevin James. Yeah, the second they hear that, they call the police, like, oh, we got peeping Toms, and the police show up, see them running into the house, and immediately start shooting at them. Like, peeping Tom merits, don't even call out halt and just start firing. So the shots scare away the hitmen. The hitmen get a shot off, but they don't hit Ralph Bellamy. And then the two guys get caught. They're arrested. Ralph Bellamy, the maid, and the third fat boy find out that the camcorder was left on. They see him like basically on the phone, and he's like, yo, I'm gonna get this to the police. And literally within like 10 seconds, as he's running downstairs, fat man fall down funny, trips on the carpet, and knocks the tape into the fireplace. So that plot point's gone. Jeffrey Jones, Rick Mayall guy shows up with the crime boss and the hitmen again. They pull out their guns. And instead of just shooting them, of course, they take them to the vault. Because there's this vault that's got like all this gold bricks and money sacks. Because, you know, like back in the 80s, every person that was rich had a Scrooge McDuck vault, apparently. And so, yeah, they try to get the vault open. They tie up Ralph Bellamy and the maid, and I think the third guy just gets knocked out somehow, or he's been knocked out, or, you know, whatever. But the other two, oh god, the other two, they're in the interrogation room. And then, for whatever reason, and this is where it just starts. They bring up what they call a Florida lie detector, which immediately cuts to them in the back of a police cruiser, and this giant guy coming out, and they go, the Florida lie detector's like, whoa, it's a 300-pound white guy with a baseball bat. Wow. Oh my god, I don't even know where to begin with that one. But I'll just focus on the plot contrivances. Why even take him out of the police station in the first place? Why did you put them in the squad car? And again, not just in a squad car, but they have their dry cleaning hung up in the back with them. Like two suits, two perfectly... Okay, not just police suits, but later on you'll find out they are perfectly sized to fit the fat boys when they escape this car with the wire coat hangers, mind you. They string out the coat hangers all in, you know, all in handcuffs, and they use the coat hangers to slide under the seat and push the gas pedal, which those are some fucking strong wire hangers to like push the gas pedal all the way down. They rear end this car, the cops get out, and they take the other coat hangers, and they start steering the car from the back seat and drive it in reverse the whole way. And, oh, sweet God, it's just, again, it's an absurd situation that, in the hands of a good writer, they could have had some funny stuff. I mean, I'm pretty sure they probably had some gags or whatever they wanted to do, but the budget wasn't high enough. But it's just like, oh, let's just play some funny music. Everyone will think it's a funny scene, and it's not. It's just them driving in reverse with coat hangers, and that's it. So they stop the car, they get out, they've got the police uniforms on, and they basically pull over a guy to commandeer his vehicle. They pull over fucking... They pull over Rick Nelson of Cheap Trick. And apparently there's some cameos that I missed in the movie, because there's like a whole section in the credits that says cameos, and it lists Ray Parker Jr. in there, and I must have missed Ray Parker Jr., but yeah, I was like, wait a minute. And they even gave him a Cheap Trick shirt to point out that he was from Cheap Trick. And I'm like, okay, they just carjacked Rick Nelson. No joke, no joke about Cheap Trick, no joke about any of the songs in there. No, they just take the car and drive off. They just thought the cameo would be funny. You know, I think that's the movie in a nutshell. They had a person, they don't do any jokes with the personality or, you know, the music they've done or where they're from. They just think that simply by having them there, that's enough to make this enjoyable. And it's, at this point, I mean, I'm just bored as hell with this movie. Like, all right, whatever. At this point, it's just been nothing but fat guy jokes. Except the the racist dog, which, oh my god, they have like this Doberman pinscher that keeps like the second they're introduced in the house, he just goes right after one of the guys and starts like, biting his leg or whatever. And he does it again like the next night, like when they come back from the roller skating rink, he bites him again. And I just remember thinking to myself, I was like, wow, this is like one of those like racist KKK dogs that you hear about that was just like, and then next thing you know, he actually points it out. I was like, man, he actually says it. He's like, what is it? I wrote it down because I didn't want to forget it either. He says, man, that dog is a bigot. And then they play it off by saying, nah, he just likes dark meat. I went, that's actually kind of worse in a way. That joke's even worse. Anyway, so back to the ending. They want to blow up the vault. They set up small charges on the vault, and then they take all the money. The crime boss puts it in a van. The other two show up. They have like a little, they get guns, but they shoot the hell out of a cuckoo clock to like basically tip off the other crime bosses, who they sneak up behind him and just attack him. So they don't get to use the guns at all. They just have like this, what could be described as like a tag team match, which honestly I think and again, since it's just nothing but fat guy jokes, they just fall on him. Oh, they fall on him. I almost think that could have been called the Florida lie detector, was what I was thinking. Because you gotta, in the West Palm Beach world, in the porn industry, that's what we consider the Florida lie detector. Yeah, so, yeah. God, where was I? They load up the money in the van. They're about to drive off, and Flock of Seagulls, Jeffrey Jones, says, "Oh, wait, I want to look like a hero." So he hands his assistant like this little pearl-handled, less than a starter pistol. It's like, "I'm going to be shot by one of the bad guys." And then the bad guy, who I keep wondering if he's like double-crossing him throughout this whole thing. He's like, yes, and yes, and yes, and then that's in the course of 10 minutes, mind you, like these last 10 minutes of this movie. Finally, he turns around with his gun. He's like, "No, let me do it." And the guy's like, no, not with the big gun, not with the big gun, with the little gun. I'm like, fine, whatever. I mean, I'm literally, by this point, actually expecting him to shoot him. Like, in the head or something, or somewhere. But instead, he just uses the little pearl handle thing and shoots him across, like, basically across the ass. And then by this point, so to cover up the vault door explosion, they put dynamite in there with the longest fuse to reach like around their house, and it's slowly burning, but it doesn't quite. I mean, it's like right by the pool. So as the fat boys get there, they fall in the pool, and then it's not the first time they fell in this pool, mind you. They fell in this pool before in the beginning. No crazy like water displacement or whatever, but they fall in this time, and it just like goes everywhere. Like it's, was it Homer Simpson doing a cannonball into a gorge? Or no, it's it came across like the Iron Giant doing a cannonball into the lake in the forest. So the water puts out the fuse temporarily, of course. So it gives them just enough time to untie Ralph Bellamy, the maid, and revive their friend. They run away. 80s explosion in the vault. So they get out. Jeffrey Jones, Flock of Seagulls guy, gets shot across the ass, like grazes his ass. And so what's his first initial reaction? Is he falls backwards into the bushes behind him. I'm like, oh god, that would hurt even worse. But by this point, they're coming out, as the van with the crime boss is loaded up, driving away, and they see this sight of the guy getting shot in the ass, and they just start laughing. They just started laughing. I'm like, okay, yeah, he got shot in the ass, great, but you're literally watching the other bad guys that just tied you up and almost blew you up, driving off with all of your money, but yet you're fixated on this guy getting shot in the ass, and they're all just laughing and laughing like it's the end of a sitcom. They do the high five freeze frame, and it says the end. That was how they ended it. They ran a couple credits, and then they instantly do the spinning picture thing, and oh god, it had to have been just tied on. Like, they literally just added stuff on top of it. It was like the Dragnet episode. It was like, so and so was brought up on charges of, theft, and this Jeffrey Jones guy was convicted of conspiracy to commit murder or whatever, and of course all the fat boys are going on to do wonderful things. One of them is what was it? They said he was training to swim the English Channel, whereas the other one is becoming a neurosurgeon, and the other one is a sex therapist. And it literally just uses footage of everything you've just seen before. So obviously they wanted to end it on that freeze frame of them laughing at the guy getting shot in the ass. Just that ending. Oh my god, that ending! But on top of it, so they throw another scene in there where they're apparently going on like a safari or a hunt or whatever with Ralph Bellamy. They come out with like bows and arrows and shotguns, and what are they doing is they're walking into like a Florida convenience store. Which, yeah, let's brandish weapons in a convenience store. That's always a good idea. Then they spot, and again, another cameo, they spot the Beach Boys in there with a surfboard, and they're all like, oh, yo, man, you hold this, I want to talk to them, and then in the process of holding it, they fire a shotgun into the air, everyone freaks out because, again, you're bringing a fucking loaded gun into a convenience store. What the fuck? And this is the ending they're ending with, and oh, God, I just... That ending was literally like a kick in the nuts after... It's honestly like trying to get someone's attention and trying to get their attention and trying to get their attention. Instead, they just turn around and punch you in the face after so long. That's what this movie was. I wanted something to keep my attention for a long stretch of time, and it didn't. And then it just turns around and like punches me in the face with this stupid ending. It's a bad comedy. Yes, it's a very bad comedy. I'm sure I'll get into some other bad comedies down the road. But it's just not good. It's really not good. I don't know if anybody, like, if it's got, like, a sentimental cult following. I can't imagine why it would, because there's about 50 other movies from the 80s exactly like this, probably, that would be done much better. It's forgettable, it's bad, I don't want to say offensive. There's points where it could get a little offensive, like it takes jokes too far without being aware of it. And I think the worst part about it is it just doesn't do anything to endear the Fat Boys to us. And like I said, I didn't know much about the music, but your actors always deserve better than this. Everything always starts with the story and the script, and in this one the script just wasn't there, and it lets everybody down that's involved in it. There's not a lot of talent behind it outside of Ralph Bellamy, who is, of course, an icon. He's been making movies since the 30s. He was in The Awful Truth. We, of course, people in my generation know him as the guy from Trading Places and his little cameo in Coming to America. But yeah, this one just so if you're gonna have a movie with the Fat Boys in it, I mean, you gotta expect some fat jokes here and there, but it's just, it is not a good starring vehicle. Like, it's something that, if you're a singer that, like, you're hoping this is going to be your break into movies, this is more than likely what's going to happen. And it didn't end well. So we haven't really seen the Fat Boys in much afterwards. They kind of broke up shortly afterwards, and, you know, yeah, this was, I hate to say it, this was a very forgettable movie, and it's unfortunate for every actor involved, I think, because I hate seeing actors wasted, because an actor does their best. I mean, at least a good actor. Can hear a train in the back. At least, you know, most actors out there will do everything they can to try to bring some life into a performance or bring a presence to a performance. There's not much presence in these performances, and oh my god, it's just that ending. It was just such a slap in the face, or a punch in the face, a kick to the groin, or whatever. Every metaphor I've described it. It's all of those. So yeah, not a good one, but in 1987 I have seen worse films. I saw Cobra with Sylvester Stallone. That's still a very bad one. I mean, I can understand Stallone, you know, guilty pleasure movies, but that's one that just goes over the guilty pleasure rank to just unpleasant and idiotic. And then, of course, we have Leonard Part 6. I don't want to take any Bill Cosby jokes right now, so let's just say that the Fat Boys never were embarrassed, or they never sunk to the level of embarrassment that Leonard Part 6 put Bill Cosby in that movie. So yeah, that does it for this week's episode of Movie Masochism. Tune in next week, where my review will be of a recent reboot of the classic Universal monster movies, and not the one with Tom Cruise. So, until then, may your next movie experience be a pleasant one.